we have a quorum, so we could get started.
Recording in progress.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 1135th meeting of the Housing Authority and the Urban Redevelopment Agency of the City of Atlantic City. The Open Public Meetings Act notification is that this meeting has been properly published and posted in accordance with the requirements of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act. The first item of business is roll call. Commissioner Devenish.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey.
Here.
Commissioner Gabay. Commissioner Hossain. Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Thank you.
Vice President.
Weedle? I'm sorry.
Here.
That was Gabay.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Marshall.
Present.
Thank you all. At this point, I would ask everyone to join in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States
of America,
and to the republic
which stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
liberty,
Justice
justice
for
for all.
Thank you. We are at item 3 on the agenda, which is participation of the public. And I would ask, as each speaker from the public is heard, please identify yourself clearly by name and address so that we can have accurate records of the participants and their statements.
Okay,
All right. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak?
Madam
I
Chair,
do.
I'd like to be recognized.
Yes, Councilman Shabazz.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and people listening. I have a very brief statement to make with regard to the agenda item on with regard to Stanley Homes and the rent reimbursement. I don't have to recite the conditions of Stanley Homes. We all are very, very familiar with it. And my only comment about that too, I believe that the residents of Stanley Home need to and deserve a rent reimbursement for the month of November from some of the inconveniences they have suffered with regard to the conditions at Stanley Homes. And Madam Chair, for the record, I just also want to indicate that Congressman Van Drew, our congressman in this district, has also joined me in this request. So I would like to, for the record, respectfully urge the board to grant that request. And I submit that without any rancor, not pointing fingers at anybody, but just suggesting that we all need to continue to work as we are to improve conditions for Stanley and all public housing entities. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for allowing me to present that.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilman Shabazz. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
yes, I do.
Okay. All
My name
right,
is Tina Hubbard.
okay. And do you live in, and where do you live?
I live in Altman Terrace Apartments.
Okay,
My problem is that my window was shot out and it's been ever since August, and I'm real uncomfortable in my house and they still haven't fixed my window yet, and it's been ever since August. Now, I done talked to somebody and they didn't came here, but still my window is not fixed. I still have a big old bullet hole in my window, and I'm not comfortable in my own house like that.
okay. And you said you spoke to someone and the manager is aware?
Yes,
Okay, Beth, do you have her contact information and address? Okay, all right. Mr. Clark, would you mind following up with the tenant tomorrow, please?
Yeah, sure, Chair. No problem.
Okay, thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Clark will be in contact with you tomorrow, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome.
Okay.
All right. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? And,
Yes,
okay,
yes. Letitia, I live at Jeffries Towers.
okay,
You don't really have enough time in this meeting for me to make a list, but I just wanted to speak on what Mr. Shabazz said and the tenant at Altman Terrace. The amount of time that she has waited for that to be corrected is like become the norm here at Jeffries and around all of the properties, that people are waiting months, sometimes years, till they give up, which I think somehow upper management expects us to just give up and just go away. However, Mr. Shabazz is speaking about the abating the rent for November. These issues have been going on for years. If this was before an actual judge, he probably would have paid their rent for all the time that this has been happening. Just wanted to put that out there. If I were living in Stanley Village, I would rather the judge make an abatement, because it would probably be for the whole year or more that these things have been neglected. And I just hope and pray that this group, if you have anything to do with correcting these matters, I look forward to you doing just that. Thank you.
all right, thank you very much. Keisha Bay, I know signed up to speak in public session.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, you have the
Can you hear me?
floor. Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you.
I know I don't have a lot of time to say all the things that I need to say or to get out there, but I just have pretty much 2 words. Carolina Torres, Section 8 recipient. I'm a landlord, and she was a tenant of mine as up until maybe a few days ago when she moved out on the 30th. Literally the tenant from hell. And my question is, and everything that I would say on record is documented. What are the consequences to violating the rules on Section 8? That's 1. 2, Section 8 is aware of
Pardon me, can I
everything
interrupt?
that I've. Yeah.
Madam
mhm.
Chair,
Commissioner Dorsey?
I don't know about privacy laws, but I think that I'd like an opinion from legal if we're allowed to have this conversation, or she should sidebar this and talk about people in public with their names. I think there are repercussions that are legal that do not necessarily require this board to have in public. Legal opinion on that?
If I may, Chair, the Commissioner Dorsey is correct. We have to take great care. Section 8 matters are protected, so we don't want to use any names. Perhaps the member of the public can be referred to Mr. Clark to have the matter addressed, if that's satisfactory.
Okay.
This way your matter can be
Yes.
addressed, ma'am. Thank you.
That's fine, but I'm not done. Aside from her, Section 8, the office, the whole Section 8 department, what is the issue over there? It's just in shambles, pretty much.
Okay, you could finish your comments, Ms. Bay.
Yeah, it's little to no communication. Trying to get someone on the phone, getting people to respond to emails. I've had, for this entire year, nothing but issues with Section 8 payments, with money being deposited. It's just been a mess. It's really just been a mess. And I'm really trying to be patient because I know that they are short-staffed, but even trying to get a hold of the executive director has been difficult. So, I mean, it's really a turn off, to even be a landlord for Section 8.
Okay, Ms. Beth, I'll make sure, Ms. Bay, I'm sorry. I'll make sure that Beth has your information. I believe she does have your information. And Mr. Clark, would you mind following up with Ms. Bay tomorrow as well?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We'll get it from Beth Ann.
Okay.
Okay,
Someone in contact with you.
Okay, Mr. Clark is from where? What department?
Mr. Clark is the interim executive director.
Oh, nice. Okay, that would be nice. Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
I'll speak to you tomorrow, Ms. Bay.
All righty, thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone else from the public who wish to speak?
Yes, I'd like to speak. If I may.
Yes, I'd like to speak.
Okay, I see Brian, AC Housing Authority.
Hey, so I'm a manager at ARP, and I just would like to say that in regards to my tenants' complaints, everything that my tenants complain about, I have been submitting requisitions to have the work completed. And just like the tenants, I don't get a response either. So if somebody can help me get a response and help some of this stuff get done, I would greatly appreciate that. But just today, I received a phone call from Miss Hubbard about her windows being broken, and I told her to call the 17th floor because I submitted the paperwork, and then Beth sent me an email asking me what was going on with it. So I sent the email to John, Jerry, Beth, Denise, Ivy, and everybody else because it's out of my control. So I just would like stuff to get done a little quicker if possible. I know we're on zero threshold, but I don't think the tenants should have to suffer through stuff like this. And it makes management look bad. It also makes the agency look bad as a whole. So that's my only comment that I had to make right now.
Okay, Mr. Clark, would you mind following up with that tomorrow, please?
Yeah, no, and I did get Brian's email. Yes,
Okay,
I will. Yep.
great, thank you. All right, Joseph Beeman?
Yes. Can you
All
hear
right.
me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to reach out to someone in reference to me being a vendor. And back in July, I was told that my recs and everything was being held up by the Miss Gordy. And I was told I needed to speak with her. I reached out to her several times. I came to the office several times. I emailed her. Nobody has reached back to me to tell me anything involving, being a vendor, with the housing authority.
Okay, I did give your, Mr. Beeman, I did email Beth and I gave her your information. And so, John, Mr. Clark, again, would you mind following up with Mr. Beeman? His information is in the email that I sent to Beth.
Okay, I'll get that from Beth. And Mr. Beeman, I'll be in contact with you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone, thank you, Mr. Beeman. Is anyone else from the public who wish to speak?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would like to speak. My name is Mona and I'm at 600 Atlantic Avenue. And my issue is, why is it that the tenant has to find out why the housing authority is not paying their share of the rents when you're paying your share? I didn't think it was fair, if you were on Section 8, why is it that you have to try to get in touch with the housing authority, which you do not get answers back? There's been a couple times that a few people over at the main office in Jeffrey Towers has responded. But as far as like going over to Pennsylvania Avenue, you hear nothing from no one. I have been there, like I was going to work there. I was going so often. And all I was getting was pushed around, turning in paperwork 3 different times, the same paperwork, which they had. You're telling you to drop it in the box. And now I'm hearing that that they have not been paid where I am now. So why should I be the one, if I'm paying my share and they're still telling me we still haven't been paid from the housing authority? What is the problem? Whatever. Because I didn't think that should be on me to have to do it. I think it should be between I thought it was between the housing authority and the landlord.
Okay, yeah, someone will be in contact with you. Does Beth Ann have your information?
I've talked to her before. Yes, I did. And she was one of the few that got back to me through the Housing Authority.
Okay.
But
Beth,
that's been a couple of months back. Yes, I talked to her some months back, but I'm still hearing that they have not been paid over here.
okay. Someone will be in, Mr. Clark, would you mind following up tomorrow? Beth, do you have her information?
I'm not sure I have her information, but Beth, Ann, do you have her information?
Monet, what is your last name?
Evans.
Evans, I do have it.
Okay, then we will. Yes, Chair. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else who wish to speak in public session?
Yes, Charlie Cradaville, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good evening, Charlie Cradaville, New Brunswick today. I appreciate the opportunity to address you, but I have to start with a complaint. This meeting is not accepting phone calls. So I know you advertise on the website that folks can call or Zoom in, but I'd encourage you to test it and somebody try calling into the meeting. You get a message that says this meeting doesn't accept phone calls, phone call-ins. So I would suggest that's a serious problem because your notice is defective and folks may be trying to get in the meeting and aren't able to. But I'll move on to just 4 questions I have today. The first one, I've asked a few times, I'm trying to get a straight answer. August 11th, you held a meeting, then you didn't hold any meetings until November 11th. That's 3 months with no meetings. Considering the severity of everything that's going on and all these issues unfolding, having a new top person, why didn't the board meet for 3 straight months?
That's not true. We have met. But you could continue on with your questions. And I believe our attorney has your information. And so our attorney will reach out to you to respond. But if you have anything else to say, you could go ahead and say it so we can move forward.
Did give my information to the attorney last time. I did not hear from him. And correct me if I am wrong, but there was a meeting on August 11th and then no meetings until November 11th. By my count, that's 3 months. And, you know, still, if there's been an explanation of why there weren't meetings, I haven't heard it. No one has said on the record what.
I'm sorry, but you said there was a meeting in August, but then there wasn't one in November?
There was one in November. August 11th to November 11th, that's 3 months.
August, we had a meeting. September and October, there wasn't a meeting, and we had a meeting in November. So there's monthly meetings, but you could move forward.
Right, there's supposed to be monthly meetings, but there was not one in September. There was not one in October, and we haven't gotten an explanation why. Why were those meetings?
We had one in November. We had a meeting in November, so.
Right, my question still stands. Why were the September and October meetings canceled?
The attorney can address that at a later date. You can move forward. You have 3 minutes and you're now down to 1.
Okay, why did you hire the interim executive director through his private company, Sunbelt Industries, instead of an interlocal agreement with his full-time employer, New Brunswick Housing Authority?
Okay, the next question.
Okay, I guess somebody's going to follow up with the answers. Does anybody else at Sunbelt Industries provide services to the ACHA or just Mr. Clark?
Any more questions?
Yes, my final question. I'd like to know how much has been paid out so far for Mr. Clark. We know his contract is $125 an hour, and he is supposed to work 2 days a week. Do you have an approximate figure of how much he's been paid through that contract?
All right, thank you. Our attorney be in contact, and as always, you know, you could Oprah a lot of this information. Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public who wish to speak?
Yes, Ms. Marshall, it's Michelle Post with the Atlantic City Press.
Hi, Michelle. Michelle, you want to mute.
The reporter who asked those questions, a couple of them were questions I also wanted to ask, and I would like to know why you don't answer the questions in a public forum, why you're saying somebody will get back to you. That way the public who's listening in doesn't get the answer. I was also wanting to know how much money Mr. Clark has made and so far. And And also I wanted to ask you how the process is going in finding a full-time permanent exec, what's been done so far and what kind of time frame you're on with that. But I think it's very important to answer questions in the public so everyone can hear the answer.
Okay, some of those questions I don't have the exact answers to, and I don't want to answer those questions in the public and not give the correct statement. And some of those questions could also be Oprah as well. Anyone could Oprah those. And as far as the search for an interim ED, we started that process about 2 or 3 weeks ago. The personnel committee did meet. And by tomorrow, sometime next week, we will be advertising for a full-time ED.
And would you commit to when questions are asked at the next meeting, answering them in public if you don't feel that you have the answer at your fingertips? But like I said, answering it for everyone, not just on the aside for whoever asked the question.
Okay, if I have the information, yes, I will answer the questions in public.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Cecilia Brown? I see your hand.
Hi, thank you. Yes,
Hi,
yes, my
welcome.
hand is up. Yes, my name is Cicely Brown, and I am a resident at the Elliott House in Atlantic City. And I'm advocating for myself and the residents there because a lot of them are elderly, a lot of them are mentally challenged. And I have been there for 2 years, and there have been a lot of issues within the apartments, rodents. Right now, currently, let me advocate for myself. Currently, I have no heat. I haven't had heat since last year, since last winter. Right. I am in contact with the property manager, and also this property manager and whomever just bought this property are fixing up the empty apartments. They're gutting them out and they're doing all this work, but leaving the residents that are there out. So almost every other apartment has no heat. My apartment has no heat, no hot water. Right, the water is cold. It's never hot. It's lukewarm at times. And my biggest issue is that I have no heat, and they keep like putting band-aids on these problems or telling me that the plumbers are there, and then they cut the water off to do repairs. I have a question. Is the Elliott House owned by private people or is it under housing authority?
Ma'am, it's not under housing authority. I'm not sure who's the owners.
I can find out the owners. I'm at my wit's end. I have been holding back. I called City Hall. I called everybody. I called the press. I called everybody. I have been holding back. I don't know what to do. I need some help here. Like the whole complex over there needs help.
Okay, it's I would suggest, yeah, I'm not sure. It's not under housing authority at all. Elliott House, is that off New York Avenue?
Yes.
That's Councilman Shabazz's ward. You could get in contact with Councilman Shabazz.
And Councilman Shabazz is on the Zoom meeting now, correct?
Yes, but this is a housing authority meeting.
Okay,
ma'am.
I understand. I thought I saw him on there. Okay. Okay, well, I'm glad I even got a chance to speak, and thank you for listening. I appreciate you guys.
Sure, you're welcome. Is there anyone else from the public who wish to speak? Is there anyone else from the public who wish to speak? Third and final call. Is there anyone else from the public who wish to speak? All right, seeing none, hearing none, we can move on with the agenda.
Thank you, Chairwoman. The next item on the agenda is item 4, which is the election of officers. This is, of course, an annual step that's taken at the reorganization meeting, and it's preceded by a formal statement, which I will now read. In accordance with the bylaws, Article 2, Section 7, entitled "The Chairperson, Vice Chairperson, Treasurer, and Assistant Treasurer shall be elected at the annual meeting of the authority from among the commissioners of the authority and shall hold office for 1 year or until their successors are elected and qualified." End quote. An election of officers will be held today. The officers elected shall hold office until the annual meeting in December 2023 or until their successors are elected and qualified. The commissioners currently holding office. The chair is Stephanie Marshall. The vice chair, Eli Gabay. Treasurer, Jeff Dorsey. Assistant treasurer, Patricia Tweedle. The procedure for making nominations. Any board member may nominate any other board member for the offices of chair, vice chair, treasurer, and assistant treasurer. More than one person may be nominated for any office. The election process will be as follows. I will open nominations for one office at a time. Once nominations have been concluded, a vote will be taken for that office. 4 affirmative votes are needed to elect an officer. If 4 votes are not obtained for any individual, another vote will be taken. The offices to be filled at this evening's meeting are the office of chair, vice chair, treasurer, and assistant treasurer. So we begin with the nominations. I'll open the floor to nominations for the office of chairperson.
I nominate Stephanie Marshall.
Yes, I'm sorry, that motion was by
Dorsey.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second to it.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second for nominating Commissioner Marshall for the office of chair. Are there any other nominations for the position of chairperson? Seeing none, we'll close the nominations and we'll ask for a vote on the nomination of Stephanie Marshall to serve as chair of the board for the coming year. Commissioner Devon.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey.
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle.
Yes.
And Chairperson Marshall.
Yes. Thank you very much, board. I appreciate it. We have a lot of hard work in front of us. Not that we haven't been working hard. We've been working very hard, but we still have work to do.
Thank you. And the nomination and the selection of Chairwoman Marshall to continue for this year passes by a unanimous 6-0 vote. The next office to be filled is that of vice chair. I'll take a motion to nominate someone for that office.
Nominate Eli Gabay.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second Tweedle.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Seeing none, we will go to a roll call vote on the nomination of Commissioner Gabay to be vice chair. Commissioner Devonish.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey.
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle.
Yes.
Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
The nomination and appointment of Commissioner Gabay as vice chair has been approved by unanimous 6-0 vote.
I just want to say
office.
thank you. I just want to say thank you, Commissioner. I know this year has been a tough year, but with the next year's coming up, I hope that we can just get everything together and always put our resident first. It's been challenging, and I just want to tell you thank you guys for your vote. And I'm definitely going to be working with the chairwoman and whoever we have coming in to work with the agency so we can make sure that our residents are receiving the best services that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. The third office to be filled is that of treasurer. We'll accept a motion to nominate a person to fill that position for the coming year.
I nominate DC.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Marshall.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the position of treasurer? Seeing none, we will go to a roll call vote on the nomination of Commissioner Dorsey to serve as treasurer. Commissioner Devenish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
The nomination has been approved. Nomination of Mr. Dorsey to serve as treasurer has been approved by a unanimous 6-0 vote. And the final office to be filled is that of assistant treasurer. We'll open the floor to nominations for someone to serve in that role for the coming year.
I nominate Ms. Tweedle.
Second, Dorsey.
Thank you.
Chairperson, I'd like to decline that for assistant treasurer.
I would like to nominate Ms. Johnson.
A second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the position of assistant treasurer? Seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote on the nomination of Commissioner Johnson to serve as assistant treasurer. Commissioner Devenish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you. The nomination of Commissioner Johnson to serve as assistant treasurer has been passed by a 6-0 vote.
Welcome aboard, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item number 5, approval of the minutes from the open session of November 10th, 2022. May I have a motion to approve those?
Motion Tweedle.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is open for discussion, if any. Seeing none, roll call vote. Commissioner Devenish,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay,
Abstain.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved by a vote of 5 affirmative votes with 1 abstention. Item 6 on our agenda is reports from board committees. We defer to the chairwoman to determine the order of presentation, if any.
Mr. Clark.
Yes. You'd like me to do my report first?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. All right. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening. So I wanted to start out by saying I want to thank the ACHA staff. I know they've had some challenging months and years, quite frankly. But I think as we move forward, they will see a lot more progress than they've seen probably in the last 18 to 24 months. We've had some really good productive discussions with HUD and the new HUD team. There's a new state director, a gentleman named Leonard Spicer, and some new people there at the Newark office who appear to be working now in conjunction with the ACHA on moving items forward. I know our comptroller was on just today. We received our operating subsidies now retro back to, I want to say August, Ab, maybe?
Yes.
So we've received
November.
Okay, we received our funds. We're very appreciative. I know that there've been challenges with zero threshold and some other issues, but I'm very pleased to report with the board that our discussions now are really seem to be moving items forward. In conjunction with that, we continue to have some delays, particularly on the supply side. And I know Brian and some of the other staff have been frustrated with putting in requisitions and things of that nature. But my hope is now that funding is available, and now that we've been able to loosen up some of the restrictions, Jerry and I and the management will be able to move forward with procuring items and getting things and supplies to the managers, so they can then in turn move a lot of these items and repairs, a lot of which, quite frankly, have been ongoing since COVID, and maybe even before that. I wanted to give an update on the Stanley boilers right now. We have 2 boilers operating at Stanley. Hot water systems are circulating. The 3rd boiler right now is scheduled to be brought online again. We did have it online over the weekend just to get the system fully circulating. Now that it is, those final repairs will be made on that boiler. The authority, I've been told, again, this precedes me, but I've been told the authority has not had 3 boilers running on Stanley, I believe, in 8 to 10 years. So my hope is by midweek next week, we will have that functioning fully. And as you know, the city continues to go through and do their assessment and evaluation. We'll move forward with any of those items that are in need of continued repair or ongoing repair or remediation for that matter. The chair mentioned about posting. I want to thank Commissioner Davinish and the committee, the subcommittee, I should say, for their work on the executive director posting. That posting is in final legal review. As soon as we get the authorization from the attorney, hopefully that'll be tomorrow, we will post and advertise for the position of the full-time executive director. And that comes also in conjunction, once that is onboarded, to have a deputy director and a mod coordinator position. So the 3 top positions, the goal would be to fill those, within the next 3 months, and have those positions in place by March, mid to the end of March. With regard to Busby, I know Rick is on the call. His report was in. I don't know if there was any other information or any questions. We'd be happy to answer those. That is progressing. I think we're still shooting for early spring ramp up to have those units ready. I know the supply chains have been challenging for everyone doing development now, but I think that will really be helpful as we progress with sort of bringing back those units online and creating some more affordable housing units in Atlantic City. Choice Neighborhood Grant is moving forward. I know for the last, I guess, year or so, we didn't really have much progress, but since about September, we now have been moving forward with meetings. We did have a presentation to HUD a week ago. We will be sharing that with the board so you can kind of see the progress on that. And that is sorely needed here, obviously, with all of the issues that are going on with Stanley and just with the creation of additional affordable housing in Atlantic City. I think it will be a welcome progress that everyone will be able to see as we continue to try to create more additional units, but also to try to address some of the ongoing and longstanding problems that Stanley has had for a very long time. We have brought on some contractors. I know many of the board have contacted me saying that they've seen, the landscapers out there. They've seen some of the other components. We're going to continue to do that, having funding now available, again, thanks to HUD and the staff working through the hoops of that. We have brought on a subcontractor to do some units at Stanley to prepare those so that we can move people around that are having moisture and mold issues, and also makes repairs on some of the security doors. We brought a contractor in for extermination. We brought a contractor in for our security components and a number of other areas Jerry and his team have been working on. We're going to continue to do that over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Also, over the next couple of weeks, you will see RFPs, requests for proposals, advertised in the newspapers. HUD has now gone through and approved, I'm not sure the number, Jerry, 5 I'm seeing on the screen, or is that a hello? That's a 5. 5 of the RFPs. I think we've proposed about 12-ish. So we still have 7 on the table. We'll work to continue to get those through, but I encourage anyone, once we see those publicly advertised and solicited, if you know any contractors in the area that could be helpful, please refer them to that. The footprint for these advertisements is going to be a little expanded because some of the areas we might need some larger contractors to help with some of the larger challenges that we're finding, and some of the things that have quite frankly been let go for a longer period of time. Smaller contractors just may not be set up to handle some of the larger components. So we're looking for multiple contractors to be able to come in. As I reported to the board at the last meeting, the authority remains quite short-staffed. Right now, we are looking to hire 10 maintenance staff. We did get some applications of a previous solicitation. We will be opening up again to solicit some more because we're probably going to need more than what we originally had, or what the board, I guess, over the summer had originally slated. Right now, the number is 10, but I think, quite frankly, that'll probably go up to 15 at some point, just given the turnover at the authority and the sheer demand now that we have for, looking at a lot of the repairs that, as I said, had gone unaddressed, pretty much for some period of time. Last and not least, I do encourage the board to support the abatement. I've made the recommendation to the chair. I believe that residents didn't ask for a lot of the challenges that have been happening, not just this year, but in the past. I also believe that the service interruptions and some of the other challenges that residents have been experiencing at Stanley for years are not just going to end this winter because of the age and the condition of the systems there. There are going to be continued issues and challenges that have to be addressed. I believe HUD is committed, and I've heard them say that they're committed to help abate things as they arise. But I think the first step in doing that really has come in the last week or so with the access to funding and resources to be able to address some of those things. But more importantly, now turning around the proposals and bid solicitations that the authority has been preparing in what I believe is a pretty timely manner. So with those 5 bids being out on the street, with the other 7 coming down the pike, I think there'll be a lot of activity. I do encourage our staff to continue to hang in there. I know they've been a challenging few years, if not longer. And I do appreciate them working every day. We have some great staff at the Housing Authority that work hard every day to try to make people's lives a little better. And that work is difficult and challenging, and they do it every single day. So, my hope is that they'll continue to do the work that they do, and that we'll be able to get the resources that they so sorely need to do a lot of the work that they do. And to the residents again, please continue to let us know the challenges you're having so we can try to get your units in the system so that when we do have contractors available and they are on site, we're able to get into your units and make the repairs and or any of the other issues that need to be addressed, taken care of. Chair, was there anything else you wanted me to cover?
Nope, I think you pretty much covered it all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I got a question, John. Mr. Clark, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's John. That's fine.
Yeah, how many vacant unit do we have at Stanley? And then my next question is, how many unit that have mold? And I do hear you saying that you have people coming on site to work on it. How many of those units are they coming to work on?
So we have 16 vacant units at Stanley right now out of the 426. I don't know the exact number on mold. I can get back to you on that, Commissioner, but I know that mold and moisture has been challenges at Stanley for a very, very long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if that number is quite high. The contractor that's on site now is working on 6 vacant units to turn, so that if there are units that have some real serious mold issues, we're able to mobilize and move them into those refurbished units quickly, rather than trying to do some abatement in place. The contractor that we have does have the ability to do abatement in place, but I suspect there's going to be some pretty serious mold or moisture issues there where abatement in place is not going to necessarily be an option. So we're starting with those 6 vacant units to be able to get those turned with the contractor. So there's availability to actually move people should we have that option. We'll also have the availability of vouchers, although the vouchers are a little bit more challenging only because, and tonight I think they'll be a little less challenging if we're able to, the board does see it fit to approve the payment standard increase. but just the availability of Section 8 voucher units in Atlantic City is restricted now and challenging. So when they come, they come. If they're available, they're available. But we control the public housing units, so we know that we're able to move people and transfer people from one unit to another unit, should we need to do that.
So, sorry. So the 6 unit are we working on? Are they 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom? Because the reason I'm asking this question is no reason why the contractor can take care of all 16, because you have some family members who have 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, or maybe 2 bedrooms or 1 bedroom. If they do have more and we decide to move those people in those units, or so what's the breakdown? You said 6. Are they working on a 3 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 1 bedroom? Like, how are we doing it all? Can they work on all 16, or is the fund is not there for them to work on all 16?
You hit the nail on the head. So right now that contractor is doing 6 of the vacants, plus what we suspect will be a pretty large number of moisture mold remediation units. So the mix of those 6 are 1s, 2s, and 3s, so that we have the ability to move people into those units. If that scope needs to be expanded, we're going to actually we're now working on a scope to go out for a larger bid to do apartment repairs and modernization repairs. That's going to be a larger bid for multiple contractors or one very, very large contractor maybe. But the current contractor scope, the funds aren't there to be able to do all of those 16 units and then be in a position to help with some of the moisture challenge units at the same time. So we want to kind of keep within that scope right now so that they have the ability to go into some of those units that have some more serious mold or moisture issues within their current contract and scope. We don't want to expand it right now. And particularly now with the city, I know the city's going in and doing an evaluation and assessment, which we're looking forward to getting and working with them on and obviously sharing that with HUD. So we're not going to wait for that. We're working on a scope right now to go out for a larger contractor for modernization and repairs. Hiring maintenance staff is not going to be enough to do that. But my goal would be that within that new scope, the contractor or contractors, multiple contractors that we would be able to turn all 16 of those units around, as well as vacant units in other properties. Because the idea would be maybe mobilizing some people out of Stanley who want to maybe move into the senior buildings or senior ready, and maybe moving some people and shifting them into some of the other facilities that the authority has.
So what are we doing with the pest control, like the mouse, roaches, and all this other stuff, bed bugs and all this stuff? Like, or do we have any contractor on board, like doing this stuff, taking care of those things?
Yeah, Anchor Pest Control was brought in underneath the emergency declaration. They are on site remediating. Any clients or residents that have pest issues should be contacting the management office. They issue a request for services, and Anchor is actively servicing units right now. They started with some of the more infested units, I should say, for lack of a better term, that have been long-standing problems. But if any tenant has any, small pest issue or large pest issue, they should contact their management office, and then Anchor will be tasked to go out to them and make those necessary service calls. They are also going to be taking over all of the monthly service for all of the facilities on the regular monthlies. Right now, they are doing some of those as well as addressing the infestation and larger problems. But we will now be bringing them on to do all of the facilities underneath the current emergency contract.
So the emergency contract, how long is that running to? Because don't we have to put a bid out there if they're going to be with us? I know you say emergency. So how long is the emergency stuff is going for? And are we putting the bid out there to try to bid it for a full-time pest control? Can you answer that?
Jerry, you want to hop in on the timing of that? Because that's a great question.
Go ahead,
sorry.
Jerry. No, go ahead.
Okay, I don't want to mute myself. I was waiting for it to clear. That's a great question. And right now, the majority of the work that has been arranged to have completed, not only with pest control, but the boilers and the other items, is all being done under the emergency procurement. It's not a simple thing like just advertising a bid. I have a PowerPoint presentation to go over with the board at some point which will explain the process. So we're building the bid documents, which will result in an OSAR Part 1 submittal to HUD for review. They come back with their questions. It's a lot of documents. Once they come back and give us the green light, then we can advertise and then go through the formal bid process. That, quite candidly, is the reason we're having property managers upset with the supplies and a whole bunch of other things, because it's directly attributable to the zero threshold order that was given July of 21. Therefore, to give you an answer and say, well, it could be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, I can't give an answer. The emergency declaration that we're operating under gives me, as your QPA, significant flexibility to bypass the rules and enter into emergency contracts, as long as the chief executive, in this case, the executive director, and the board have declared an emergency, which they have and has done, and same has been done by the city. So we're presently operating under emergency procurement procedures, which we want them to go away as quick as possible. I don't know what the timeline is, but I can assure you this week we've had 2 meetings with HUD and we have another one scheduled for tomorrow morning. So we're talking to them a lot about releasing the existing requests on the OSARs that have been submitted, getting documents, files, and the like, in order to be able to put things like pest control out for bid. Now, did they do it in the past? Yes, but trying to rebuild the files, finding OSAR Part 1, OSAR Part 2, files are non-existent. So we're trying to rebuild everything. And just today, HUD sent me copies of ESARs that didn't exist at the Housing Authority. So I can't give you a straight answer. I hope I've given you a description of some of the issues we're facing on a day-to-day basis, but as relates to those items that have been declared emergent, we are moving. I can't even tell you how fast. It's like at Godspeed. I mean, we're going so fast to get these emergency contractors in, but they require paperwork, issuance of purchase orders, documentation, HUD forms, and the like. So all of that takes time. And when you don't have a staff, and I'm doing it with my people at my end, it's full-time work.
So Jerry, I got a question. Are you down here? How many days a week are you down here with your staff? Like, is it just
my staff and I are working remotely, as I told everybody I would do under the contract arrangement. Am I in Atlantic City? I'm there quite often. I'm not physically in the office conducting business. I'm conducting business remotely, as with my team.
So okay, what about, is the city still helping us with the trash, or do we have a trash emergency procurement too as well, like to pick up the trash? Because I know the city has stepped in to help us for a little bit. I know the city is helping us too.
My understanding is there's an interlocal with the town at the moment. John can jump on that and respond. Again, there was solicitations, there were issues, and when you start doing the cost analysis and the independent cost estimates and the comparative price analysis, and then talking to the town, and there were comments made that the numbers aren't in sync. There were all kinds of issues. So my understanding is on trash removal, there's a interlocal that's been worked out with the city, and that they're handling that at the moment. John, you can address that.
Yeah, the city.
Just one more thing, real quick. With this emergency, because I know you said we're trying to do it so we can bypass it, because I just don't want us to get caught up again in no stuff with HUD. That's what I'm asking. Like, usually in the situation with the emergency, is it like 6-month emergency? Is it a year? Like, where's the color line that HUD prove that if we into an emergency agreement with a company or whatever?
Okay,
how,
so that's
like, can you
that's
give
a great
me, like,
question. That's a great question.
I don't want us to get caught up in a mess again. That's why.
Understood. And that's why last week or earlier this week, I'm losing track of the days, because we're working, my team and I are working in excess of full time on Atlantic City, believe it or not. But that's why when we had a meeting with HUD earlier this week, Director Clark, myself, and others from HUD, one of the topics that was discussed ad nauseum was what constitutes an emergency. So a real quick lesson in what constitutes an emergency: anything that adversely impacts the public health, safety, and welfare and has an immediate and pressing need. And once that declaration happens, you throw the rules out the window and you address the emergent situation. Clearly, the Atlantic City Housing Authority is in an emergency on a multitude of commodities, right? So we're allowed under New Jersey law, which is more stringent, to address the immediate urgency while you put together the bid documents and go out. And you're supposed to do it relatively quickly. Under the HUD rules, completely different, right? So we talked to HUD and they overemphasize pretty much what you're saying. Not everything is an emergency. So as long as I have an emergency declaration from the chief executive and the board, I'm operating under that so-called emergency, and we're keeping HUD informed. Earlier this week, in a second call, they've asked to be updated rather often through the executive director's office on what progress we're making, where we're going, what we're doing. Now, keep in mind, we're still waiting for formal written approval to proceed on some of these OSARs, meaning the original request to simply go out for bid. So until they give us that, we can't even advertise. Then you have a 10-day requirement generally on goods and services. Some are 20 days, some are 60 days, but the majority is 10 days, right? Then we have to advertise. Then we have to take the bids. Then we have to evaluate the bids. Then we have to recommend to the board to approve those bids. Fast tracking those things in a normal situation without HUD is probably 60 to 90 days, right? Now, introduce public housing, introduce federal regulations, introduce zero threshold. That 90 days has just been elongated. So it is extremely difficult to give you a specific answer, and I share your concerns. I'm equally concerned. I don't feel that we should be contracting long-term on these emergency contracts. I don't, but we don't have a choice because we don't have contracts in place. Now, rather than rehashing and getting into personnel issues and contract negotiations, which are clearly a topic for closed session, there's challenges, significant challenges, I might add. So, you know, there's a lot of work that we're doing and we're pushing as hard as we can to get them approved. Listen, I send emails pretty regularly to HUD saying, you know, what's the status? Where are we? When are we getting approved on this? And to be very candid, in the last 10 days, we've seen monumental progress on the part of HUD's cooperation with us collectively. And I think, John, you would echo those sentiments, I think.
Yeah, I would. And again, thanks, Jerry. So Eli, the short answer is the interlocal is in place with the city. We appreciate the mayor and the city allowing us to do that. I did speak with the BA if there was an option to possibly do an extension, which we may need. There also may be an option for us to do what's called piggybacking to try to shorten some of the timeframes, essentially using other public, municipal, or public entity procurement as our own.
And by the way, and if I could just interrupt you on that point, by the way, the new state director is actually using that. So, you know, we've had the New Jersey office is totally against using that, right? But the new director has said, wait a minute, it is in the regs, it is in the procurement guide, it is in the federal rules. Now, there's challenges associated with it. It's not a simple thing like, let's piggyback off of the city of Atlantic City's bid. No. And when I show you my PowerPoint at some point, maybe tonight's not the time, you'll see that we have to do things like submit an OSAR Part 1, submit an OSAR Part 2, get the approval because of the zero threshold, get the solicitation from the original RFP, come up with the method and means that was procured, evaluate what that entity did and determine whether or not it was HUD compliant. Get the HUD required forms, get them all put in the package, submit it to HUD for approval. Regional director has to sign off. That process takes time. So you can't just piggyback off of another existing entity. Although I'm pushing for that, because that, in concert with us going out for solicitation, using emergencies, more importantly, entering into interlocals, not only with the city of Atlantic City, but other entities, could help us get things quicker. Keep in mind, the procurement function has been, shall we say, insufficient, and we're rebuilding things. So,
Okay,
didn't
thanks,
mean
Chair.
to interrupt you, John.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, that's it. So that's, oh, I'm sorry.
Can just one more last question. What about the elevator situation over at Shore Park? Is it up and running now? I noticed that we were down to one. How's that process with the elevator situation over at Shore Park?
Want me to jump in, John?
Yeah, Otis, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jerry.
All right, so we've called Otis. I've spoken to the Philadelphia office, which is the regional office. I went right to the top, found out that they were waiting for a green light to proceed. We gave them the green light. They told us one elevator was repaired. I shouldn't say all of them. And they were waiting for some parts, again, supply chain related. We authorized them to get the parts that are required. We had people tell us at the meeting that there were no elevators working. John actually went to the site and one elevator was in fact working. So, you know, are there issues? Yes. Are they getting the parts? Yes. Are all of the elevators functional? No. Are they working to get the parts to make them functional? Yes.
So, can you clarify something for me?
Because I'm just a little bit confused, because isn't that should be 1 hour emergency thing, because we have senior citizens living in those buildings with like medical issues, and then if emergencies do happen, so me looking from outside, like I would think that would be like an emergency, something for to try to, like, I don't know what we need to do to speed up the process or to get these people. Is it because the parts not in the country, or they got to order it from overseas, or like what's
again, that's a great question. And when I made the phone call a couple of weeks back, and I went right to the regional office of the elevator company and said, what is the problem? And they said, what are you talking about? We ordered the parts and our repair guy was there yesterday. There's no issues. So there was first problem was there was a huge communication issue, right? Second problem was, of course, we're operating under the emergency declaration on that. Everything's out the window. We're not getting quotes. We're not soliciting bids. We just said, green light it, get in there, fix them, go and do all of them. So we did that. Then there was an issue with getting a part. So I contacted 3 other elevator companies and said, get in there. I don't care who has the part. Go find it, fix it. We need somebody down there. The elevators need to be fixed. Of course, when there's public health and safety and the ambulance couldn't get in and the elevators weren't working, of course, that's an emergency by definition.
Right. And so, just, Eli, to answer your question easier, it's not just a supply issue with that one company. There is a national issue with the parts for Otis Elevators is, I think, one of the largest, Jerry, elevator companies in the country.
Correct.
And so, and it's not just, you know, Atlantic City or anybody else. There's a national shortage on parts.
Again, we called several companies. I even went to the part company and I requested to see if we could expedite things to get them what they need. And Otis is telling me that the tech goes out and when he gets there, there's minor things. Some of the things, I shouldn't say that, minor things as relates to some of the repairs, but the tech is also telling me we need to rebuild motors, and some of the parts can't be replaced anymore because the units are so old. So we told them, go ahead and replace the new motor, put a new motor in, change the system under the emergency procurement process. So yes, we're doing it under an emergency.
All right. I just prayed that we could try to fix that, because we don't want to open a possible lawsuit, something crazy towards the entity, because like I said, a lot of these people in wheelchairs, they're a senior citizen, they got medical problem, you know, anything can happen. So I just hope that, you know, y'all can just keep talking to them for us to get to that as soon as we can. That's all. Thank you.
Totally agreed, Commissioner, and thank you for bringing the questions up. They're excellent questions. We agree with you.
Thanks, Chair. That's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. Moving on the agenda, report of the treasurer, number 7.
Chair,
Good evening. The
Madam
treasury
Chair.
report has
I'm
been,
sorry, Commissioner
sorry.
Dorsey.
We're gonna need to change the format that we do this, because I had a million questions, but I was trying not to interrupt the vice chair. But we ended up going on 12 tangents off of one. And now we're going to go back in circles because there were a bunch of questions that probably other people had that ended up not asking. So we have to edit this format so that we don't just filibuster and go through 12 different, categories, you know what I mean? We just got way down a rabbit hole of just like craziness. So
Commissioner Dorsey, is there one particular topic that you would like to touch on?
there's a couple different things. From Jerry, we talked about this elevator, the elevator, and at one point we were told that the parts were on back order, and we were waiting on these parts. You're telling me that the parts were not on back order, that there were parts that were available?
No, those two different elevators, Commissioner. I'm sorry. I don't want to jump into Jerry.
No, you're right.
Those are two different elevators. One was inlet, one was shore. This is the one shore. Inlet had one down as well. Inlet's part was installed. Inlet has 2 working elevators. They still have a service call on one of them, but the actual part was the inlet one. This is shore. Shore is different.
So
I didn't know
I'm trying to clarify the details. So their inlet is the one that's been down for a number of months, 4, 5, 6 months. And we were told we were waiting on a part. And so we're now saying that the part, we weren't waiting on it, it was available.
What I'm saying is I called the regional office in Philly, got the regional, I sent an email, and I told them if I didn't get a response from them within a certain time limit, I was going to take it to the next step. The regional director himself called me within minutes. He said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, I'm told we're waiting for parts. They've been back ordered. They're on hold." He said, "That's not true." I said, "Okay, then." He said, "My technician was there. He'll be there tomorrow." And he went the next day and the elevator was fixed.
That was the inlet elevator, Commissioner, not Shore Park.
Yeah, let me qualify that. That was inlet. And then there was some confusion with a bunch of emails as to which properties and which elevators. So we asked the technician to go and look at all of the elevators in multiple sites and to let us know what's needed, and that I was giving them authorization to either fix, repair, or replace. Again, at John's direction. I don't do this stuff unilaterally. This is all, joint conversations. John and I talk, I couldn't even tell you how many times in a day.
So you mentioned
and at night and on weekends.
So you're saying that, well, you said there was a miscommunication. I'm trying to figure out again, what's the miscommunication? The part you called and it was, they're coming the next day, but when we asked, we were told that it was unavailable and not even planned on coming.
I think, Commissioner, no disrespect intended, I think we're now getting close to what I categorize as contract negotiations, personnel matters, and the like. And without going into too much detail, that's why I'm speaking very generally, because we're in a public session. There's related topics and issues that I think are best for a different forum, I think.
So you're saying there's details here that you can't disclose in public that we need to talk about in private?
I think so.
In relation to all these other things that we've been waiting for with HUD and getting these bills paid and getting these contractors contracted. You guys have been on the job for a couple of months and we had things submitted before that. What have we submitted that has not been approved yet? And what is the holdup and what was the holdup other than HUD just
again, again, we're going to go to an area. I mean, I'll defer to John in a moment, but we even heard tonight at the meeting, and I made notes. We had a gentleman say that he was a vendor. I don't even know which company he is. All right. So we're getting this pretty much on a daily basis where vendors are reaching out and saying, hey, we did work, and okay, who authorized it?
Right.
but I
Chair,
understand
I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't mean to interrupt, but to answer Commissioner Dorsey's question, we're going to get into areas that would have to be in closed session.
Thank you, Joe. Commissioner Dorsey, do you have anything else?
And just to report to the board that, I visited the site today. I spoke to the contractor about the boilers and the conditions and all the details and all of the technical aspects I won't get into, but boilers, hot water, everything is working within acceptable parameters in the field. As you all know, I'm in the business. I saw the work that they did. Obviously, these are units that were built in 1962. They are 30 million BTU units with a 350 horsepower drive. The inlet temperatures are good. The outlet temperatures are good. Hot water temperatures are good. At the moment, they've replaced a lot of the internal parts, which are the tubes that transmit the water. Mounting problems, more maintenance needs to be done. Just to let the board know that at the moment, everything is looking good. It's a three boiler system where 2 boilers are needed and the third boiler is a backup. And from what it sounds like, we had spent the last 8 years working on 2 boilers, just swapping them back and forth. So it looks like everything is in much better condition right now. And by Monday, we should have the third one up and running, and they'll be working on some new problems that came up on other ones. But the residents at the moment, at least, have good heat and hot water, and 2 boilers running in a fashion they haven't had running probably in a decade. So,
and keep in mind, Commissioner, that all of this was done within the last 30 days. All right. So residents have complained that since 19, they've had no heat in some instances. And again, all of this was done under the emergency procurement rules, and we moved as quick as we possibly could. So that's a monumental achievement.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, moving on with the agenda. Number 7, the report of the treasurer.
Good evening, Chairman.
Good evening.
The report has been submitted. If you have any question and concern, please feel free to ask me. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, seeing no questions, we can move on. Number 8, report of the secretary, and Mr. Clark basically went over everything as for board committees. And number 9, other business and communications. I did want to ask Rick Giannetti, hello, thank you for your report. I do have one question with the timing of Busby. Is the Michaels group on track for everything over at Busby for completion?
So there's 2 tracks. For our HUD schedule, they got to somewhere like May. They're on track for that. They tend to think they're on track for their tax credit final delivery schedule for March, but they're working, they're working overtime to get there. But they're making good progress. So I am cautiously optimistic that the construction will be done, except for punch work, by the end of March.
That is great. Anything else you would like to add?
Oh, what report did he send? I don't have his report in there in his package.
It should be at the end, Commissioner. It should be one of the last items.
Yeah, it's one of the last items.
Did they email it? Because not in my package.
Everyone received it. It was the very last packet, says December 2022 redevelopment report. Yeah. Does any commissioners have any other questions? Rick, is anything else that you would like to add in reference to Busby?
Just one real positive thing. So the solar, all the roofs are done. The solar panels have started to go up. And we were fortunate enough to make a community solar arrangement. Originally, we were buying the solar panels and owning them and maintaining them. Under community solar, they are being put up by the community solar grantee, the awardee by the state. They're being put up for free, will be maintained over their lifetime as well. And before, the energy was going to, light up some parking lot lights and things like this. Under this program from the state, the tenants will have the opportunity to actually buy the electric at a lower price. It wasn't before, they weren't going to be able to do that. And somewhere along the line, we will get in the next month or so, a negative change order on the construction costs, because we don't have to buy the solar panels. So I think that's a pretty good arrangement that our partners and us have been working on for the last 6 months to do.
Wow, that's great. Okay, any other questions from the commissioners?
I don't have any questions of Rick, but I have questions obviously that can't be here in public, so I'll hold for private session so we can talk about this. Other items.
All right, we could move on with the agenda items.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Item number 10, these are resolutions that are proposed tonight for adoption by the board. There are 5 resolutions numbered 9616 through 9620. The first, 9616-12-22, is a resolution of the Board of Commissioners adopting a schedule of meetings for calendar year 2023. May I have a motion and second?
Motion, Marshall.
Second, Eli.
Thank you. The resolution is open for discussion. And hearing none, we will have a roll call vote. Commissioner Devenish. Commissioner Devenish, perhaps it's muted.
Yeah, she's off the line. She had to go.
Oh, okay, thank you. Commissioner Dorsey.
Abstain.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Abstain.
Abstain, thank you. Commissioner Gabay.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle.
Yes.
And Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
That resolution passes by a vote of 4 in favor with 1 abstention.
May I ask a question? Will you be meeting in person in the new year?
Oh, yes, not yet. We were having talks about it, and then a couple people got sick again. And so we decided to continue on with the Zoom. But yes, Michelle, we hopefully wish to go back in public, hopefully real soon in the next couple months.
Thank you. The next resolution is resolution 9617-12-22, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners reappointing a JIF commissioner for calendar year 2023. May I have a motion and second?
Move.
Moved by Dorsey.
Second.
Second by Johnson.
Thank you. That resolution is now open for discussion. And hearing none, I will ask for a roll call vote. Commissioner Dorsey.
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle.
Yes.
And Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you. That resolution passes by a vote of 5 in favor, none opposed. Next, resolution 9618-12-22, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners approving a 1-month rent abatement for residents of Stanley Homes Village due to temporary interruption of heat and hot water service. May I have a motion and second?
Motion. Second.
Tweedle and Johnson.
Thank you. That motion or that resolution is open for discussion.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So, we've talked about this a bit, and I don't know. I don't necessarily think this is the best solution to our problem or the best solution for our residents. Obviously, you and I have spoken about this. I spoke to Councilman Shabazz today. I think that we as the Housing Authority need to do better. Our administration, our staff, we need to do better for our residents. I'm just going to leave it at that. This is not the answer to the problem. This does not in any way, in my eyes, create substantial benefit to the tenants. And I'd question how many tenants necessarily were without services at times and what times they were without services. So, I mean, I don't like the precedent that it sets either. So that's all I'm going to say on this matter.
So Dorsey, can I ask you a question real quick? Are you disagreeing with, like, you're not happy with like 1 month, or do you want multiple months, or is it you just don't want to give them that credit?
I don't think that I'm an analytical person, and I don't feel as though I've been given enough information to even think about, I'm not going into a courtroom and being offered guilty or not guilty and not saying, well, what's the case? And here, I don't feel like there was presented a case. I feel like there were some pressures from people in different places and tenants for this. And, for some reason, some people thought, okay, let's just give them an abatement. And I think that, I've seen this board do this before, and I don't feel as though that changed anything on the authority side in realm of the authority doing any better, learning the lesson, or creating something better for the tenants. We're here to give the tenants good and affordable housing, and a lot are on subsidy, and I think that good housing is what they deserve. Good housing is what they should have. And this abatement may keep a couple dollars in their pocket, but that's not truly what they need. And I think that we should also assess all situations, not just for face value, but what their true value is. And if there were 100 tenants that didn't per se have heat for 6 days of the month, or there were 300 tenants that had no heat for 14 days of the month, we don't know that. So us blanket taking an abatement under consideration without all of those details, I feel is a dereliction of our duty to actually know the details of why we would consider such a motion. I mean, you tell me, if you think that it's a good idea, what basis would it be that you would base your opinion of that on? On 5 people's words or 20 people that came to a meeting? Because I've seen on social media yesterday, somebody saying they had no heat and hot water, and we know that they have heat and hot water. So there've been misrepresentations as well. And I feel like, there's not enough information included or provided to us for us to take this under consideration and actually be able to say that any of us can say, well, I voted on this because everybody deserved it, and explain why.
So let me step in for a little bit. Being a resident commissioner, I live here, And from the time that I moved in there about 6 years ago, every winter, not just this winter, every winter, we lose heat and hot water for more than a week, 1 to 2 weeks. Sometimes we had it last year. I think it was almost a month and some change. So it's not something that, you know, it just maybe some of our resident that City Hall should have been packed. Maybe some of our resident were reluctant to come because they're so used to it that it happened every year. So it's nothing that the board's going to do. This is something that people been saying that had been happening like 10 years before I even moved in there. So for me, as a resident, I even think this 1 month is like a slap in the face to the resident because we already give them a month before. And living in this condition where people have 6 children, you got elderly people, and we have to leave our home. At the end of this is our home. With everything that we're experiencing with the trash, the mouse, I had rat in my son crib. I had roaches in my apartment. We don't have to live like this. It's not because it's a low income housing that means we should be living in this condition. That's wrong. And we are human beings. This is our home. I know that nobody will be paying rent in any other property and then they don't have no hot water for a week or 2 weeks. It's not acceptable. So he presenting a month to the resident. I think it's a slap in the face. I would have asked for more. But as the board, you know, I would support my board. But the condition that we're living in every year is horrible. I don't know if you experienced that situation before, Dorsey. I have a 6-month-old baby that my kids got to sleep in a winter jacket because we have no heat. And not just me, it's a lot of other residents.
I grew up in public housing, Eli. And
I agree with you, sir, but I'm saying, but what's going on right now? I don't think when you were in public housing, you didn't have hot water and heat for every year, for 6 years in a row. I just think this is something that we need to do more for the resident. This 1 month is not, you know, I think if we have to move it and discuss about it in closed section, I'll be willing for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Dorsey. Thank you, Commissioner Gabay. I think sometimes some things we want them to be in black and white, and sometimes it's that gray area, and it's not a right or a wrong, but it's just trying to have a little bit of empathy and compassion. We are all feeling it with the residents. Busby will be finished soon. We could break ground on a city lot that the Mayor Small administration has given us. We're going to move forward to them to that in the next year. Things are definitely get brighter. So this isn't about too much of a right and wrong, but it's trying to show what compassion we can show. So I want to move on with the vote. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Dorsey.
Abstain.
Thank you. Commissioner Gabay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have the attorneys advise.
Yeah, I shouldn't have voted on this, right, Chairwoman, because I'm a resident, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Sorry about that.
But your vote has to be recorded.
Okay.
Attorney, would you mind advising? Oh, yes.
Eli, abstain.
I'm sorry, because Commissioner Gabay would be a direct recipient of the rent rebate, he should abstain from the vote.
All right, abstain.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle.
Yes.
And Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
The resolution passes by a vote of 3 affirmative with 2 abstentions. A majority of those present to vote are in favor, so it passes.
Mr. Manfredi.
Yes, in New Jersey, under the Redevelopment Act, we need 4 affirmative votes as a housing authority to pass any action.
Okay.
So it fails unless Commissioner Dorsey or reconsiders.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Dorsey.
I'd like to change my vote to yes.
Okay.
With that change, that's the fourth affirmative vote, and it passes 4 in favor, 1 abstention.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next resolution, 9619-12-22. This is a resolution of the Commissioners adopting a revised payment standard of the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program to 120% of the fair market rent. May I have a motion and second?
Motion Tweedle.
Second, Dorsey.
Thank you. The resolution is open for discussion.
Chair, would you like me to say something?
Yes, please.
So as you know, at the last meeting, the board basically moved the voucher component up from 95% of the payment standard to 110. In consultation with HUD, we're able to go up to the 120%. This gives the tenant now being issued any voucher the ability to use that voucher in our jurisdiction up to 120% of the FMR. This is a huge step forward. It allows residents more accessibility to units and programs that they may not necessarily have had the ability to access. This is not where we stop. We've already been in discussions with HUD about asking for a waiver so that it will give residents up to 130% of the voucher. My opinion is that more freedom would be between the 130 and 140 amount, but I'm not aware of HUD approving any waivers higher than that. So I would ask the board consider this. This is the maximum allowable amount HUD allows without a waiver.
Yes. And there was John and I spoke with Mr. Spicer and HUD, and they were in support of this resolution. This is part of the daily conversations that Mr. Clark has with Mr. Spicer. So this is huge. Okay, roll call.
Oh my, I can't
sure,
vote on this too as well, right?
No, you can. This is fine. This is Section 8.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey.
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle.
Yes.
Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
That resolution passes by a vote of 5 in favor, none opposed. The final resolution, 9620-12-22, a resolution of the Commissioners approving and authorizing a collective bargaining agreement with the Security Police and Fire Professionals of America, Local 506, for the period of April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2024. May I have a motion and second?
Motion Tweedle.
Second.
Thank you.
Second by Dorsey.
And the resolution is open for discussion.
Mr. Manfredi, or Eva, John, this is our final contract, right? Everyone is made whole.
Chair, yeah, I just want to say again, I want to thank the security guards and all of our staff for being patient. This is now the final union agreement. I want to recognize the hard work by Mr. Manfredi and his firm, Daryl Howard and the other attorneys there did an amazing job. But I also want to thank the patience for all of the staff in all of the unions. As you know, when I arrived, they had no agreements. This is the final one. I appreciate their patience. I appreciate them willing to roll their sleeves up. And the math is not wrong. These agreements have been in discussions and negotiations for years. And now this will bring them current and also allow us to have some time with those agreements in place, I think through 2024. So I encourage the board to pass this tonight. And again, I appreciate the staff's patience and work in moving this forward to come to an agreement. And that they have actually signed off on this already. Their members have. I didn't know if Joe wanted to say something.
Yeah, that sums it up, John. Thank you.
If there are no further comments,
no.
then it's ready for a roll call vote. Commissioner Dorsey.
Yes.
Commissioner Gabay.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
Resolution passes by a vote of 5 in favor, none opposed.
Okay, commissioners, there's no need for a closed session. But we will need a closed session in January at the January meeting, and the closed session will be to discuss personnel items. And Mr. Clark.
Yeah, you may need one before the January meeting, Chair, just a point of order to go over those other items once the Personnel and Legal Committee have them. So it'll probably be prior to your regular meeting. And you may also need one in your regular meeting, so.
Okay.
Chair, I told Ms. Dorsey has some stuff that he wanted to talk about. Now you saying that it's no need for a closed section?
No, there's no need for a closed session. We, as Mr. Clark just stated, we may have to have a special meeting in the next couple weeks prior to the next regular meeting, and or have a closed session discussion at the January meeting, but there's no need for a closed session tonight. Okay. All right. Anything for the good and welfare? How about a Merry Christmas or anything?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, roll call to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
All right.
Commissioner Dorsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Godet,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tweedle,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Marshall.
Yes.
The meeting stands adjourned.
All right.
Okay. Good
Good
night.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
Happy
night.
holidays.